Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, Modern Warfare 3 and Deus Ex Human Revolution, just some of the great games that got released in 2011. Another one to make that list was the original Galgun, a rail shooter for the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 that never saw the light of day outside of Japan. But now that's all about to change with Galgun Returns, a so-called remaster that's just been released, and if you've ever wanted to experience a 10-year-old rail shooter with light romance elements and an anime aesthetic, well then today's your lucky day. Now every time I play one of these games, I always get a little bit of deja vu, and at this point, I feel like I've reviewed this game 4 times already, which I kinda have. Or I don't know, maybe it's the fact that all of these games look the same. I mean, do all schools in Japan look like this? Or is it just some kind of asset library that all these developers are taking resources from? I think another reason why it all seems so familiar is also because the plot in all of these is pretty much exactly the same. In this one, again, you're playing as a hapless kid in high school who gets struck by one too many Cupid arrows fired by a dyslexic angel, with the ensuing result being that every girl falls madly in love with you. What this means is that now you're like free pizza at an anime convention and everyone wants a piece. Suddenly you're like a belt at a weight loss camp. Get the idea? Each level just takes place in a different location around the school as you've got to avoid these girls as they constantly chase after you. They'll come running up to you in the corridors, they're perched up on the side of buildings and shouting at you through windows. For one level, you're climbing up the side of a building, hanging onto the pipes, which is really a life and death scenario, but that doesn't stop these girls one bit. How do they attempt to win you over? Well, I'm so glad you asked. They do this by shouting, by touching you, or even handing out love letters. Though funnily enough, you can also change what these look like in the options menu, so they're instead giving you items like pork buns, omelettes, or even demonic contracts. And there's nothing I like more than a girl that's willing to make a deal with the devil just to get me to be her boyfriend, let me tell you. That and girls who are into face sitting. So you use your trusty pheromone shot, aim that crosshair where you need to, and fire away, overwhelming all of these girls with euphemisms until they collapse in bliss. In other words, just click on everything that moves. Choosing from 2 different difficulty modes, Newbie Lover or Seasoned Lover, which I guess is easy mode, and then Seasoned Lover being where you play through the game covered in oregano, paprika, and olive oil. Think of it like this, right? In Doom Eternal, you're trapped on Earth, Mars, and Hell, attacked by legions of demons distinguished by their appearance and their hierarchy. In Galgun Returns, you're trapped inside a school, attacked by legions of girls distinguished by their hair color and whether or not they're a student or a teacher. And I do think it's kind of funny how the teachers in this game are so much more resilient to your attacks. I mean, look at this bit here where 2 of them are walking down this hallway like they're a couple of T-800s coming to assassinate Sarah Connor. But it is more than just clicking away blindly, and there is some strategy to it. Every single girl in the game has a weak spot, could be their knee, their stomach, their armpit, or any of the other general areas you'd usually expect a woman to be sensitive. And if you can land a shot on these, you can instantly take out a girl with an ecstasy shot. When your crosshair hovers over a weak spot, you get these Japanese characters that flash up on the screen, letting you know you're on target. The only thing is that sometimes these shots don't work, and you don't get that gratifying instant knockout. As someone who really likes accuracy in games and being rewarded for it, I can't even tell you how much it pisses me off those times when you don't get that perfect shot. But still, it does make it more than just mindlessly clicking on every brainless bimbo you see, and you'll rack up a much higher score by going for these kind of shots. Plus the sound it makes is just downright cathartic. Wouldn't be a very interesting game though if all you did was go from area to area knocking out the same looking girls over and over though, would it? You see, our poor protagonist has been hit with so many of those arrows that it also has the nasty side effect that if he doesn't find a girlfriend in the next 24 hours, no girl's ever gonna love him for the rest of his life, which is also a fate that most Fortnite players are also destined for. So the goal of the game is to win over the affections of one of 4 specific girls, which means you gotta first get yourself into their good graces by helping them out a bunch of times and completing a few mini games along the way. You choose which girl you want to pursue at the start, and about the only indication you get as to their personality is this tiny box of text. And I hope you remember it because that's all you're getting. From this point, it always starts off the same. You make it to the front of the school grounds before you meet them for the first time. Then you try to wear them down right off the bat, but soon discover they've got a few pesky guardians that are protecting them. After that, you'll always do 2 different minigames, which is unique to each girl, followed by another attempt to earn their affection, this time knocking the Guardians out, before a final sequence where you can finally win them over. That is, if you've been answering all of their questions properly along the way. You see, if you screw these up or fail any of those minigames, you get put in that dreaded friend zone. Remember that scene in the Neverending Story when Atreyu gets his horse stuck in that swamp and can't get out? Yeah, well that's a metaphor for a guy being dumped in the friend zone. You gotta move or you'll die! If you break each girl down to their most basic personalities, you've got a rich one, there's a short one that kind of looks like Pikachu who plays guitar, there's a tomboy who's into physical fitness, and then the holier-than-thou shrine maiden that you've apparently known since your childhood. And if you want to see every possible outcome, well, you're going to have to play through this thing at least 4 times. Still though, at least these minigames are pretty creative, I guess. I mean, for one of them, you're helping one of the girls out in art class, holding a pose while she paints and shooting at sheep as they move across the screen so you don't pass out from sheer boredom. Later on, she gets kidnapped by her own bodyguards for spending too much time with you, so they haul her ass away in a goddamn cage. And your rescue attempt involves shooting the cage to pieces and then somehow managing to catch her as she falls. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. For one of them, you've got to hold a ladder steady so your girl can find some books to read, which sounds pretty normal, all things considered. But then after that, she's captured by a tentacled plant monster, and you got to shoot its tentacles so it opens its mouth, revealing a weak spot. You know what? I'm not even going to make a tentacle joke here because, look, I'm better than that. But I think you can get the gist of it. How does she thank you? Well, by trying to then perform an exorcism on you. Yeah, thanks. For the girl who's the guitarist, you've got to help her write lyrics to a rock song before then helping to raise morale during the concert by shooting away the negative vibes, which kind of reminds me of playing Dance Dance Revolution, just without all the sweating and self-loathing. I still think the weirdest bit though was when I woke up at night time and one of the girls had tied me down to a chair. Then I had to find the key to unlock the entrance to the school whilst also trying to avoid her so she didn't stab me to death. At this point it turned into an outright horror game, and I think it was a really weird move for the developers to include a level like this. Alright, I'm obviously kidding and it's not the same game, but I reckon if I didn't tell you that, you'd probably think I was being serious. Despite the constant squealing and moaning of high-pitched female characters, which to someone within earshot might sound like you're doing something you shouldn't be, there really is nothing adult or even inappropriate in this game at all. In fact, most of it's actually pretty tame. About the most risque thing you get is seeing up someone's skirt. And compared to the kind of blood and gore you get in most games, I mean, that's nothing in comparison. Doom Eternal, for instance, as awesome as it is, has you snapping demons' arms off and using it to stab them through the brain. I mean, that's way more hardcore to me than seeing what colour underpants a girl is wearing. If you're really all that worried about it though, you can press backspace on the keyboard at any time and then it changes to some 8-bit styled game which is supposed to cover up what you're actually doing. And that might work, except it's just this one static screen. It was about as subtle as me minimizing to the desktop as a 13-year-old kid every time my mum walked into the room. Just like my mum told me, it's not fooling anyone. Overall though, I don't have any major issues with Galgun, but I do think one of its main mechanics is kinda tiresome, and that's this Doki mode. Right, so this is where once your Doki meter is charged up, you can then go into Doki mode, and this breaks the laws of reality as you teleport yourself and a girl to the Shadow Realm and then go to work examining her body until you manage to fill up this meter. The idea is that each girl has a different weak spot, so you've got to scroll across their body limb by limb until you find it. Then you can also stare at that body part and zoom in before firing to earn more points. Though, like how most girls in real life would also react, the longer you stare, the more likely she is to cover herself up. Once you charge this thing up, you can then release the dreaded Doki bomb, a weapon to surpass Metal Gear, which has the added benefit of knocking out every nearby girl too. This also has the effect of raising or lowering one of your 4 stats, but you've got no idea which stats it's going to raise or lower until you've done it. And it's just a slow procedure that kills the pacing of a level. You know what I mean? You go from zooming around these school corridors, losing track of how many girls you've come across, to suddenly staring at just the one. It's like putting a speed bump on an F1 racetrack. For my second playthrough, I didn't even really bother using this thing unless I had to, and it doesn't even seem to really give you a better score either. The main benefit to this thing is that every time you do it, you unlock that girl's profile, but the amount of time it'd take to do this for all of the girls is just ludicrous. It takes at least anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to complete one of these, so let's just round it up to a minute to be safe. All up, not including the 4 main girls, there's 65 girls in the school, so you're going to be spending an hour alone in this mode if you choose to go through the whole thing and get all of their profiles. Not to mention, there's no way to know which girls you have and haven't done yet, outside of just remembering their faces. Now look, I know you never expected to hear anyone critiquing the Doki bomb in a Galgun video, but I don't know man, there just has to be a better way. There's even an entire game mode centered around this mechanic called Doki Carnival, which you can unlock after earning a true ending for one of the main girls. This is like an entirely different game. In this one you scroll through walls of text, listening in on conversations, before then having to give multiple girls the Doki all at the same time, like you're Dan Bilzerian or something. By the end of this mode, you've got to Doki 7 girls at once, and look, I don't know about you, but that's some serious pressure. I have enough trouble just giving the Doki to 1 girl, let alone 7. In Galgun Double Peace, they fixed this mode by making it so all you had to do was click on a girl's weak spot over and over to get them off. I'm sorry, get their affection up. And in Galgun 2, they just removed it entirely. That was a positive change. So this mechanic to me is just a reminder that you're playing a game from 2011, and it sure doesn't take you back in a good way. Speaking of 2011, it should be worth touching on this thing as a remaster because, I mean, that is what they're trying to sell it as. It's kind of hard for me to compare this thing to the original game because honestly I never played it, but I can say just looking at it as a PC port that it is kind of lazy. For the visual options, about all you can change is the resolution and whether or not you're playing in windowed or full screen mode. There's no anti-aliasing, the textures are often just flat, blurry colours, and they didn't even bother adding in any kind of extreme lens flare. I mean, these guys could take a couple of notes from those people doing the Mass Effect remaster. That was a joke, by the way, because those screenshots look like shit. It's a bit of a shame considering how extensive the options for PC remasters usually are, and about all we're getting here is the absolute bare bones of improvements, in fact if there's any at all. I looked up a gameplay clip on YouTube of someone playing this on the PlayStation 3, and apart from the resolution, I've got to be honest, both versions just look neck and neck. Still though, you can't really deny they're trying to really let players get value out of this. I mean, you've got achievements for beating the story mode not only once with each character, but also with each of the 3 possible endings. Every time you complete a playthrough, you're given gold feathers, which can then be spent unlocking artwork, and you'll probably spend a heap of time just going through all of these one by one and manually opening them, almost 200 of them. Like all the other games I've played in the series, my takeaway is still the same. Galgun Returns is harmless, colourful fun. It's not exactly going to test your skills as a gamer. I know this might have been challenging on the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox, but with a mouse and a keyboard, this is kind of a cakewalk. But if nothing else, it does double as a pretty effective aim trainer. Handy in between sessions of shooting a Mancubus with a ballista in Doom Eternal or doming someone in Rainbow Six Siege. So yeah, how's that going for it? And you know what else? It's 2021 now, which means we can all stop pretending we don't like playing games like this, and also pretending to be disgusted by them. And I know that I'm sick of pretending that I don't like reviewing them. And if seeing up an anime schoolgirl's dress is the worst thing you're going to see on YouTube today, well, I think you can consider yourself lucky, yeah?